This might be an inappropriate question to ask right now, but is there such a thing as too much content? Because this Path of Exile 2 update, patch 0.5, is bringing so much new stuff to the game that I am completely overwhelmed. And you might be too, but fret not, because in this video, I am breaking down the amazing, the good, and the bad of patch 0.5, Return of the Ancients. But before we dive in, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the tremendous support you guys have been giving me. This is going to be a wild year leading to 1.0. Exiles, lock in. Let's kick it off with the amazing. And these are two huge quality of life features people are not talking a ton about because it's overshadowed by the sheer volume of endgame being dropped into the game. The first is the build planning system that is coming to Path of Exile 2. This allows you to annotate your item slots, give a predetermined passive tree path on your actual character, and explain which gems you should be picking up and when, in addition to other things. This isn't only great for people who use builds made by creators, but for people who like to build their own characters as well and just add notes so they don't constantly have to cross-reference notes that are out of game or in some other place. It allows you to play the game more instead of checking how to play the game more, which is a big win in my eyes. Same with the addition of the price checker into Path of Exile 2 as well for trade. Instead of using a tool like Exiled Exchange, which I was never a fan of and never used myself, now you can price check all of your items in Path of Exile 2 to make sure that you are competitive with your pricing when you are selling items. Both of these features keep players in the game and take them out of the game a lot less. As someone who never really used Path of Building or any other third-party tool, these are just huge wins for me, and I think they're being overlooked a bit. They don't just affect people who play endgame or just the campaign, they affect everybody. Another amazing under-the-radar change, the addition of challenges to Path of Exile 2. Now, when you are in the game, you have a certain set of quests and tasks to pursue to get an in-game reward, a sick armor set. I love this. It gives people a clear goal they can work toward during the course of a league, and it's just going to push so many more players to try out things they otherwise might not have. And honestly, the set looks ridiculously cool, and the challenges seem pretty simple at this point. Then there is the complete overhaul of the end game, the addition of storylines to each individual league mechanic like Ritual and Breach, which introduce brand new NPCs, new items, new ways to interact with the Atlas itself, such as the static points of interest on the Atlas that give you direction so you're not wandering aimlessly on the Atlas. And not only that, the points of interest are not far from each other or the center. So you're not doing 10 maps, 15 maps before you find something interesting. You do 4 maps and you are encountering something rad. You're progressing the story, you're progressing your character, you're moving forward in your Atlas. Heck, you only are 4 nodes away from the first tower in the game that unlocks the massive citadel that raises from the ground, which is a giant dungeon that you get to traverse through with unique maps all throughout. That is so sick, and this is exactly what my brother and I predicted on our podcast, this static Atlas that will allow itself to be changed by all these league mechanics and the actual player. I could not be happier that they decided to not throw out the Infinite Atlas and they decided to iterate and do something that, without playing it, it looks ingenious. We'll see how it plays out in game. Just like we'll get to experiment with the new Atlas tree and the Atlas Masters, which are basically ascendancy classes for your Atlas. The tree, it looks sick. You're able to unlock all of it, but you're also making vital choices on some of the notables, which are multi-choice nodes now. For example, you might use a node that allows you to gain a shrine buff when you enter the boss room, or it buffs the boss and adds an additional reward to that boss, causing you to contemplate this risk versus reward scenario. Do you buff yourself or do you buff the boss and get extra gold and items? Who really cares about gold? I cannot wait to see more of these choice notables, because I do think being able to differentiate your strategy from others, I think that's important. Then we have the Atlas Masters, Doriani, Jado, and Hilda. They allow you to pursue their own quest lines, but also change your Atlas in exciting or powerful ways. For example, Doriani can give you an extra revive on your Atlas nodes, which means you can maximum juice a map and still have 2 revives. Or you can use Hilda, who can replace rare monsters with actual map bosses. How sick is that? And you can swap between all of them with ease, just like you can now easily search through your Atlas. They actually put the search bar into the game, and it doesn't merely highlight nodes that you're looking for. You're able to press enter and hop from node to node, but there's also an extreme contrast between the nodes you aren't looking for and the nodes that you are looking for, which is massive. It's not like the skill tree where there's just a little outline that shows you what you're actually looking for. And then moving away from the end game for a minute, there are campaign guidelines now. Some guideposts that show you how to move through the campaign quicker and more naturally, but done in compelling ways. For example, in the hunting grounds, when you finish the ritual there, a swarm of locusts will move from the ritual point to Freythorn, to the direction of Freythorn, which is telling you subtly, hey, you go this direction to get to Freythorn. There are tons of other examples, and they're consistently going to be adding this stuff to the campaign, and they will be in Acts 5 and 6 when those acts release later this year. More on that later. Well, quite soon. This is a fast video. And closing out the amazing stuff for me are the 2 new Ascendancy classes. Yes, we're not getting a new class in the Duelist or Swords. We're getting 2 new Ascendancies, one for the Huntress and one for the Monk. The Martial Artist for the Monk looks amazing. This is my starter most likely. You basically get a custom set of hand wraps that your gloves turn into. Plus there are some other sick active channeling skills for the Martial Artist. And then the Spirit Walker for the Huntress allows you to tame bosses as long as they are beasts. So you can tame the Manticore, you can tame the Monkey, maybe you can even tame Atziri because she's got that beast inside of her, right? I mean, this Ascendancy class looks ridiculous. I will definitely need to play it once it comes out. I mean, at this point, the new Ascendancies that they're adding seriously are outshining the old Ascendancies. It also appears that there might be a hidden Ascendancy when you interact with Chayula, a new NPC that's being added to the Breach questline. Acolyte of Chayula changes incoming. Something like the Abyssal Lich, maybe. Now we have the good, and I'll start out with the new league, Runes of Aldur. It's basically an expansion to Expedition, which will allow you to travel far to the south from island to island now. It's adding a big crafting system into the game that has tons of possibilities, but it's not amazing to me because it looks like a lot of UI. It looks pretty complex. It looks a little convoluted. Maybe in game that will be different, but from the preview, it looked a little dense. However, there is one aspect of Runes of Aldur that ties into something else being added to PoE 2 with this update, some actually banger unique items. With Runes of Aldur, you'll be able to turn low-level uniques into high-level uniques, upping the base stats on them, which has been a problem existing in Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 forever. There are lots of interesting uniques that are hindered by the low damage or low resistances or low defenses that they grant. With Runes of Aldur, that's changing. And some of these new unique items just look phenomenal. They're granting special skills. They're granting some unforeseen and brand new affixes. They are build defining, and we're even getting Mage Blood in Path of Exile 2 with this patch, and a multitude of sick new weapons. One example is right here, the Ordained, which I'm guessing drops from one of the new Pinnacle bosses. It's a spear that gives you this new skill, Righteous Descent, which is basically Falling Star from Diablo 4, and it gives you Life Leech that recovers based on your lightning damage as well as fizz damage. We're getting this brand new mace, which converts all fire damage mace skills into cold damage. It even changes the way they look in game to ice. And we're getting Brutus's Lead Sprinkler, which is a classic Path of Exile 1 weapon, and it looks pretty busted in Path of Exile 2 for strength stacking builds. Although it does seem like this is just a pseudo spellcaster build. Then on top of these new unique weapons and items, which will enable more playstyles in addition to the Ascendancy classes, we're also getting over 20 new Kalguran skills, which are active skills that can be used across the board with every single weapon in the game. This one will be interesting to see play out. Unfortunately, I saw some cock stuff going on. Okay, some cock-like stuff, not exactly cock stuff. I'm talking about a skill that is very visually unclear. My brother will be loving it though. And then zooping back to the end game, we're getting over 30 new map layouts in the end game. They look beautiful, and this is in addition to the new pinnacle bosses that we're getting, which I tried to blind myself up. I don't want to be spoiled on the new pinnacles, but we're getting a slew of brand new bosses, and the fights from the snippets I saw in the trailer do look pretty challenging. And finally, we're getting a fragment stash tab to store all of our end game juicy fragments in. Rejoice, tablets! They're no longer going to be taking up a huge stash tab. And with that, we get to the bad, my fellow exiles, because I can't just be super positive and purely positive, because there were some bad things with this reveal, even if the good completely outweigh them. First up, no swords, no duelists, no class. I get why people are upset. Some people don't care about the end game. They just want to play a new archetype. And even though there are lots of new playstyles being introduced with the 2 new ascendancy classes and everything else coming to the game, they specifically wanted to play a new class, and a new class isn't coming, so they're not hyped and they're not going to come back until a new class is added. Sucks for them, but for everybody else, I mean, we're very, very pleased with this update. I just had to address that. Now let's get to the actual bad. Grinding your games, there are too many socketables in Path of Exile 2. The socketable system was supposed to be a replacement for the crafting bench because the crafting bench was too complex for new players, you said. And now we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of socketables that do very different things and depend on drop rates and farming. Oh my goodness gracious. What do you guys think about socketables? Am I crazy thinking there are too many socketables? It's an overload. It is an absolute overload, and they disappear once you pop them into a weapon. So many socketables. And then we have a big unknown, balance changes. We're getting the patch notes on May 21st, and what balance is being done is completely in the dark. We do know that there will not be a ton of balance done, and there will be more balance patches between now and the release of 1.0, which will be happening at the end of the year after ExileCon. But what's changing? We really have no clue. But we do know this. Grinding Your Games in the Q&A with Ziggy D said that they think the ceiling that player power is at is not too high in most cases, and that the average player actually is spending the proper amount of time on boss fights and clearing maps and all that. And the people who are complaining that the game is too fast, like myself, are just the top players. And that the difference between the top players and the average players is perfectly fine. But the example they gave was a 15-to-1 gap between the top players and the low players. I think that needs to be flattened out a bit. Like spending 119 seconds versus 8 seconds on a boss fight, that is a crazy curve. And then the last of the bad, don't come at me. I think the complexity we're seeing here is kind of ridiculous. We're not even out of early access yet. And these systems, all the ways you can grow your character's power, all the ways you can interact with the Atlas and change your items and all the bosses and all the different, I mean, it's wild. We've talked about bloat, and I'm a huge fan of bloat, okay? I love seeing a ton of different content systems in the game, and I think once we actually play the game itself, we won't feel as overwhelmed as we are right now, seeing all this content just shown to us all at once, but it's still very, very complex, more complex than I thought things were going to be. I think between socketables and all the different ways you can craft your items at this point, once again, not even out of early access, we are going to see Path of Exile 2 easily surpass Path of Exile 1 in terms of complexity. I really, really hope the onboarding for all these systems is clear in the game. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of confused players once these systems start presenting themselves in the endgame of Path of Exile 2 in Return of the Ancients. Patch 0.5 completely blew me away. I am overwhelmed. I am so pumped to play. And even though there's no new class or swords, it's way larger than I thought it was going to be. And we are getting 1.0 at the end of the year with a couple mini leagues in between now and then. Very interesting to hear that not all the classes are going to be in 1.0. We might not even get a new class in 1.0. We will just at least be getting Act 5 and Act 6 with a league, and I'm sure lots of balance changes and additions between now and then. But patch 0.5, Return of the Ancients, is the last patch of Path of Exile 2 Early Access. Are you pleased with the reveal? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile 2 content, and watch this right here, my reaction to the reveal and the immediate breakdown after. It's amazing. Farewell.